The day after Brian and I filed for divorce, two videos became hot searches. One was 7 years ago, when I was 22 years old and accompanied Brian to sing in the underground passage. I held the $10 lunchbox in my hand and smiled at the camera. Will Isabel, the future, be very happy after marrying Brian, the famous singer? You must never forget the hardship you have endured for him over the years, and you must pay him back double. Another post was about Denise and Brian walking up to the Golden Melody Awards podium today. The man expressed his love in Italian. Finally, I don't have to look at Isabel and miss you anymore. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When the video went viral, I had just bought a flight to Vienna a week later. When I clicked on the video, my image of myself 7 years ago suddenly appeared before my eyes. The thin little girl gave all the meat in her lunchbox to the man next to her. I pursed my lips and thought for a long time before digging out this memory. That was my first year away from home. I took the only $1,000 I had and squatted in front of the music conservatory to sell music scores. After waiting for a whole day, only Brian stopped and asked casually, "Brother will take you to make money. Do you want to go?" I raised my head and stared at that face, unable to speak for a long time. He smiled helplessly. "Work seriously, and split the rent in half." Since then, there have been 2 more people in the underground passage. I wrote the music and he sang. People in the underground passage were in a hurry and few stopped. There was only one little girl who happened to stand in front of us, and after listening to a song, she burst into tears. After that, she followed us every day with her camera in hand. Brian was only 23 years old at that time, young and flamboyant, with a unique style. I thought it was that song that touched her. Patting her on the shoulder, he proudly introduced, "What you just heard is an original song by the future superstar Brian. It may be difficult to get a ticket to listen to it in the future." But she shook her head and said that Brian was never the protagonist in her photos, but me. She seemed to see her former loving self in the eyes of 22-year-old Isabel. Unreserved. Hot. She said the theme of this video is called the 7-year itch. 7 years later, she wants to use this video to prove that there is no such thing as fairy tale love. I smiled and felt a little sorry for her. She ran away angrily, but the next day, she was back in her old position. Anyway, it doesn't affect our making money, so we just let her do it. The money from singing was not enough to feed Brian and me, nor was it enough to pay the rent. So in addition to writing music, I also had to work several part-time jobs, while Brian went to various bars and nightclubs. The little girl followed me and asked persistently, "Is it worth it to work so hard? After 7 years, he won't want you anymore." I pulled up my sweaty clothes and fanned myself with my hands. His eyes sparkled. "He will never give up Isabel." On Twitter, netizens went wild. Someone interpreted what Brian said to Denise at the Golden Melody Awards. "I'm going crazy. Didn't they say Isabel was with Brian for money? Who is talking nonsense? Isabel loves Brian so much." Okay, so it seems Brian is cheating on her. Isabel is so thin, and she has to work several jobs every day for Brian. Who dares to say that she doesn't love him? She loves him so much. They are right. 22-year-old Isabel's eyes and heart are filled with Brian's face. The person in Brian's heart has always been Denise. At the beginning, when he picked me up and brought me home, he always stared at my face in a daze. But from the 3rd month onwards, my image gradually appeared in his eyes. He would prepare breakfast for me before I go out in the morning, and would prepare brown sugar water for me a few days before my period every month. Every night before going to bed, she would hold my sore and cold feet in her arms. He hugged me and kissed my forehead tenderly. "Isabel, I promise, when I succeed, I will make up for all the suffering you have endured over the years. Then, I will give you a grand wedding." I smiled and nodded, and worked harder. I get up at 4 in the morning to write music, and leave at 6 to help out at the breakfast stall. At noon, I went to the amusement park to dress up as a clown and sell balloons. During the coldest and hottest days of the year, people either get heatstroke or get frostbite on their hands. You should also be careful not to let the balloon slip out of your hand if you hold it for too long. If you lose a balloon, you have to pay double the price. At night, Brian and I would go to bars or nightclubs together. He sang and I waited. If I get off work early, I will accompany him to the underground passage to continue singing. It was around 11 o'clock before we packed up and went home. After following for a while, the little girl became too tired to bear it anymore. She waved her hands and expressed her admiration for me. Are you a Superman? Don't you feel tired? How come you're not tired? I'm not an Iron Man. But when I think of that promise, it's worth it no matter how hard it is. I want Brian to succeed as soon as possible. And then he will pay me back 100-fold for all the hard work. If he is cheating, the video is the evidence. In the picture, I was grinning, leaning against the wall with a tired look on my face, and dozing off while standing. Brian carefully reached out his shoulder to catch my falling body. He touched the dark blue eyes under my eyes with heartache inside. When I smelled the fresh scent of soap on him, I suddenly woke up, as if I was a little sun filled with electricity. She hugged him with a smile and acted coquettishly. At that time, Isabel seemed to have never noticed anything unusual about Brian. After the little girl had been following us for a month, she said she wanted to go home, because of Brian and I. She seemed to have some confidence in love again. The night before she left, we invited her to the bar where we worked. Brian sang one of my latest songs. The singing made her cry again. She asked what the song was called. I said, "There Are Trees in the South." That is a song that belongs to him and her. It was also because of this song that a music producer wanted to sign Brian that night. The little girl touched me and said, "If he really becomes a big singer, aren't you worried that he will abandon you?" I took the boy's arm, raised my chin, and smiled at him with curved eyebrows. Future big singer, if someone doubts your sincerity, teach her a lesson. In front of everyone in the bar, Brian kissed me on the lips with a loving and affectionate look in his eyes. Brian, love you forever, Isabel. Just like this song says, my love for you will last till the end of my life. I rubbed my eyes and turned off the video. I feel uncomfortable, as if there is a ball of cotton in my heart, because the TV was playing a clip of Denise singing after she won the award. It was the song, "There Are Trees in the South," that Brian was reluctant to sell back then. Now renamed, "Love Falls into Frost." The composer and lyricist also changed from me to Denise. He once said that if he became a singer, I would be his gold medal composer and lyricist. Together we will sweep all the Golden Melody Awards. On the eve of the award ceremony, he said he would submit my name, but that day, Denise was angry again because I didn't bring her food on time. Brian pulled me aside and asked me to apologize. I laughed out of anger. Brian, am I her servant? But what did he say? Isabel, be sensible and don't make things difficult for me. I stiffened my neck and ordered takeout for Denise. That is the last bit of dignity for adults. But at the award ceremony, I sat in the audience in a gown, full of anticipation, waited and waited. In the end, I had to watch my own work become someone else's wedding dress. Isabel, you know Denise's temper. Just treat it as coaxing a little girl. To make it up to you, I bought you the bag you like. That's great. You can take care of your family with peace of mind in the future. This lesson can be regarded as an apology. His words were like a bucket of cold water, pouring down on me and making me feel cold all over. That night, I lost my masterpiece. After that, every time I made Denise unhappy, I had to pay a corresponding price. For example, the music score I had just written was taken away by her. The set of classical music books that I had treasured for a long time was thrown away by her. The space in the study used for writing music was converted into her recording studio. Every time this happens, Brian gives me a gift. Later on, he just handed me the black card and told me to use the card to buy anything I liked. I have cried and quarreled with him, but he always ended up sighing and sounding impatient. Isabel, isn't this enough to repay you for all the hardships you went through with me? She's your sister. Can't you just give in to her? How long are you going to make a fuss? I was stunned on the spot and swallowed the bitterness in my heart. Brian, you will never be able to repay me for what you owe me. These are not enough. If you want me to stop making trouble, give me another 300,000. 300,000 plus the gifts I sold before are enough for me to make a new record. When he looked at me, there was confusion and disappointment, but no guilt. Isabel, I can't believe you've become like this. That day, he threw the check in my face and slammed the door. After that, I used money to repeatedly extort dirt from Brian, and the news spread like wildfire, and he watched coldly. When I reopened Twitter, I found that netizens were arguing fiercely. Denise is so shameless. She stole Isabel's song and interfered with her marriage. She will be blackmailed for life. You won't forget that every time Isabel quarreled with Brian, she would get a high-priced gift. Right. If Isabel could really write so many good songs, why would she need to keep squeezing Brian's money? She is just a housewife now. I suspect this is all her own drama. Don't go beyond your level and touch our golden song queen Denise. What kind of victim blaming is this? I feel like many of Denise's songs are similar in style to Isabel's, and maybe they were all written by Isabel. So this award doesn't count. Right, don't forget. Brian is Isabel's husband. If there was something wrong with the song, would he still defend Denise? Can't we tell at a glance who Brian loves and who he is responsible for? As the discussion volume skyrocketed, topics about me, Brian, and Denise remained high on the trending search list. Denise's fans went to my Twitter and continued to bash me. Those who defended me also started to flood their screens with topics about Denise's plagiarism and being a mistress. Just as Denise and I's Twitter feed was about to collapse, Brian posted an update. There are two pictures. One is the divorce application signed by him and me. The other is the contract in which he transferred the copyright to Denise. At the same time, Denise's secondary Twitter account was uncovered. The content completely paralyzed Twitter. Denise's trumpet interaction with Brian was 10 years ago. The first time the two of them interacted on Twitter was as a teenage girl's rage. 18-year-old Denise wrote, "I suddenly have a sister, but she is the daughter of my dad's mistress and I hate her." Brian asked, "What's your sister's name?" "Isabel." Later, the two of them always started discussions around my topic. For example, my likes, my dislikes, and what my ideal boy looks like. Denise talks about the superior treatment her bad sister receives at home. Things that belonged to her were often taken away. She told Brian that she was going to be sent abroad because of her bad sister. 23-year-old Brian comforted her that her bad sister would get the punishment she deserved and allowed her to study abroad with peace of mind. When he was 23 years old, he finally waited for Isabel, who was 22 years old, a girl who looked 60% like Denise. At the age of 24, he finally received an invitation to release his first single. He became an overnight sensation and his songs were played in music stores on every street corner. It was also in that year that he gave up a great opportunity to go to City A for me. He knows I don't like City A. Soon, the newly gained fame was submerged again not long after. He carried his guitar and resumed his old job in the underground passage. I wanted to say something several times, but he just rubbed my head nonchalantly. My brother is so powerful. It's only a matter of time. But Isabel can't just accept it. Looking at that face, my eyes turned red and guilt filled my heart. After singing for 2 years, when he was 26 years old, Denise returned to her country. As a rising star in music, she invited Brian to sing a love song together. Brian became popular again, and thanks to Denise's support, he signed with City A record company. The night we signed the contract, he hugged me without saying a word all night. I guess he was struggling internally. In my second year at City A, pictures of me and Brian arguing and me maxing out his black card appeared online. His fans thought I was a gold digger and my Twitter was filled with messages asking them to break up. He said words of comfort but let me be blacklisted by the entire internet. Netizens pushed Denise to the position of new sister-in-law. Brian also remained silent. He went home less and less often, but collaborated more and more with Denise. They were regarded as the golden boy and girl of the music industry by their fans. But there was me standing between them, ruining the mood. When the news about him and Denise first broke, he would hug me and explain in a firm tone, "Isabel, it's not like that. Denise and I are just having a casual affair at the request of the company. Don't be angry, okay?" I stroked his face and kissed his passionate eyes. "Respond softly, okay?" Later, he just smoked on the balcony and asked me to go to bed early. Now, Denise's second Twitter account has once again sparked a wave of smearing me across the internet. My father, who hasn't been seen for a long time, also posted a sincere and heartfelt post online. He said that even though I have done many wrong things and am materialistic, I still beg netizens to let me go. He would make me apologize and stay away from Brian and Denise. Those keyboard warriors instantly became excited and started to speak passionately. I told you. Isabel is the mistress and our Denise is so innocent. Why are those who support Isabel silent? The ironclad facts are in front of us. Even her father has admitted that Isabel is born a bad person. Maybe the music she created was originally stolen from Denise, and now it is just returned to the original owner. Brian has spoken out. They are divorced. Isabel has been stealing Denise's position for so many years just for money. It's time for her to give up her position. Support Brian and Denise to be together. Isabel, get out. Brian and Denise's fans flooded into my Twitter feed, and the abuse was even greater than it was back then. I sneered and closed Twitter. touching the man in the photo on his phone who looked exactly like Brian. I have done what I promised you. Relying on fragments collected from the internet, people piece together the bloody marriage drama of a top singer. Many people are speculating when Brian will marry Denise. Will their wedding be able to surpass the wedding of the century that he spent a huge amount of money to prepare for me? Some people even wrote down my crimes and imagined tragic endings in great detail. Unexpectedly, a piece of news once again changed the direction of the internet. After producing Brian's first hit album, the famous record producer Clyde switched careers and started making music documentaries. This time, 4 years later, he returns with his new album, Breaking the Cocoon. There is also a documentary behind the album. As soon as this news came out, netizens temporarily put aside Brian's gossip and focused all their attention on this man's dynamics. My name is clearly printed in the producer column of the new album. Oh my god. Isabel can't stand Brian and starts to lick Clyde again. Gold diggers are really disgusting. Clyde is not a good person if he likes her. Isabel is a housewife who dropped out of college. I can't think of any other way for her to get close to Clyde except in bed. I hate it. Even though Clyde has produced hit albums for many big names, I will resolutely boycott this album. I suspect that Isabel had been hooking up with Clyde before she got divorced. They are an adulterous couple. No wonder Brian wants to divorce Isabel. I will support the CP. Denise begged Clyde for a chance for Brian. She is such a kind person. She always speaks well of Clyde and treats him as a friend. I never thought Clyde would be such a person. I feel bad for Denise. Clyde's Twitter was filled with insults, but this did not prevent the popularity of Breaking the Cocoon from bringing in traffic. The album has not yet been released, but the documentary has already been quietly played online. The scene begins with a young Clyde. He talked about the original intention of setting up a music studio with his friends, and his habit of shooting vlogs to record his life. Those in the industry who are familiar with his temperament all smiled knowingly. Some voices also began to speak for Clyde and testify to his character. But at the 23rd minute and 20 seconds, a person who surprised netizens broke in. Isabel, 21 years old. His face was bruised and his body was covered with wounds. The thin little girl was squatting in the corner of the school gate, holding an urn. A shadow blocked out the little light, forcing her to look up. She staggered to her feet, but because her legs were numb from squatting, she fell into the boy's arms. That pretty face was full of teasing. Oh, you like me so much. You like me so much that you want me to throw myself into your arms. It's just that your self-torture strategy is really unnecessary. As he spoke, his fingers touched the bruise on her forehead. The little girl stepped on him like a cat with its fur standing on end, then quickly ran away. In the camera, the boy looked helpless. Why are you like a cat, scratching people when you get anxious? Clyde, do you know whose little girl this is? Off camera, the voice of teenage Clyde can be heard. It seems to be the one on the corner. I heard her mother just died, and her mistress and daughter moved in with her. It's a pity that she is such a good talent. She won first place in the school composition competition this year, but her father and the school said that she will not continue her studies next year and will return to her hometown to get married. The boy scratched his chin and tilted his head towards him. How much money is left in the studio? I used to be afraid to watch videos, but now I am almost greedy and dare not miss every frame. Isabel's life was not smooth that year, and it could even be said that she was close to despair. At school, Denise spread the rumor that my mother was a mistress, and because I was the child of a mistress, I was targeted and isolated. Everyone started pointing fingers at me and whispering. They said that my face looks like my mother's. Maybe those scores were written by him after he climbed into the professor's bed and slept on it. Denise started to pull her friends and tear up the music sheet I had to hand in for homework. Locked me in the bathroom when the class bell rang. He even put a snake in my school bag to scare me. Replaced the water in the cup with urine. At first, I told the class teacher, but in the end, they called my dad to the school to deal with it. When he got home, he was beaten again. Because I am ignorant, he threatened that if she slandered his sister again, she would be kicked out of the house immediately. I held the urn and ran away from home again. This time, I went to the beach. The seawater gradually covered my calves, thighs, and waist. When it was almost reaching his chest, he was pulled out by a big hand. The boy helped me wring out my wet clothes and tapped my forehead. Why? You don't want your aunt's ashes anymore. Do you want to finish your studies and go to City A to become a real composer? He didn't ask me why I wanted to commit suicide, but those words pierced my heart. I didn't cry even when my father beat me severely. but I suddenly burst into tears. I think I wanted to write a song for my mom whose life had come to an abrupt end. I want to write songs for myself flying freely. I want to write songs for the countless students who are also being bullied. I also want to write a song for the light in front of me. He suddenly panicked and clumsily wiped away my tears with his sleeves. Don't cry. Don't cry. Brother will buy you some candy. Isn't that enough? I was stunned for a moment. Hiccuped. But the tears inexplicably stopped. I'm not a child. He smiled and said, then I'll make you something delicious. What do you like? It's been a long time since anyone asked me this. Since my mother died. I shook my head. As long as I could fill my stomach. It would be okay to eat dog food. After all. That's how I spent the first 2 days after my mother passed away. The day he brought me back to the studio. I finally had a steaming hot meal after a long time. Are the dishes I cook really that delicious? I ate with my head down, afraid that tears would flow down if I wasn't careful. I could only nod my head in response. He rubbed my head and raised the corners of his lips. Did you hear that, Clyde? The little girl praised me. Actually, what Clyde said was right. But that meal became the most delicious meal I can remember. From that night on, I lived in the studio. I don't live here for free. I can write music to pay for the rent. He smiled and said, okay, I'm still waiting for your song to win a prize. I wrote the music and he sang. With the blessing of his unique voice, the music will still make your ears intoxicated even if you play it on repeat 100 times. But a few days later, my father came to my door, warned the teenager not to approach his daughter again. Let me go home. Otherwise, imprisonment awaits him. When I got home, I realized that the daughter he was talking about was not me. Everything that Denise had done to me, I had to pay back to her one by one. This bought me a moment of peace. He is so stupid. But from then on, his name was engraved on my heart. Eugene. When I went to see him again, I had an invitation letter from City A Records in my hand. It was he who submitted all the music scores I wrote. For the first time, I lost myself and rushed into his arms. I heard his heartbeat, which had also lost its rhythm. Congratulations, future great composer. You are one step closer to your dream. Your birthday is coming soon. What gift do you want then? I pulled away from his embrace shyly, my face turning red. I'll tell you on your birthday. He ruffled my hair on purpose, pretending to be unhappy. Little girl, you know how to be mysterious. How about this? When you come back from City A in a couple of days, tell me, no matter what it is, I will satisfy you. The reflection of me in his eyes is full of a girl's thoughts. He should know what I want. So, does he like me a little bit, too? But, on the day I was most looking forward to, the morning he went to pay my tuition, he never came back. The car knocked him out more than 10 meters, and blood was all over the ground. I ran towards him like crazy, but only had time to hug him in my arms, with hot tears rolling down my cheeks. He gave his usual sly smile, but he no longer had the strength to raise his hands to wipe my tears. Little girl, I'm sorry. Can you give your birthday wish to your brother? I hope you can help me take care of my brother, Brian, and I hope you are safe and healthy. The moment the boy closed his eyes, I hugged him and cried bitterly. He should know that there is no way I can refuse him. On my 22nd birthday, I left my only excitement in that spring. On the day of the burial, I withdrew my tuition. I took a leave of absence from school. He and my mother were buried in the same cemetery, with the remaining $1,000 in his pocket. He set up a stall in front of the school gate. Clyde squatted down inside. Don't tell Brian about his brother. He's hated his brother since he was a kid. I nodded and asked him to stay away, because I saw a face that looked exactly like Eugene's. At that moment, I finally understood why he asked me to take care of his brother. As soon as Brian started talking, my eyes started to turn red. Brother will take you to make money. Do you want to go? After Clyde discovered that there was a little girl filming Brian and me, he focused more on the studio. Only when I have free time occasionally, I hide in a secret corner and record everything about Brian and I. He said that after the filming is finished, he will burn a copy for his former brothers to watch. It was also in that year that I began to come to terms with Eugene's death. He made a wish and he wants me to fulfill it. When I collapsed from heat stroke in the amusement park for the umpteenth time, it was Clyde who carried me to the hospital. If Huainan knew how you wronged yourself, he would regret what he said at the end. He hates to see you suffer. I shook my head but smiled. Only I understood that Eugene was trying to pull me back from the brink of death in his final moments. He always understood me. The feelings that cannot be expressed. the lover who has been lost forever, and the family ties that no longer exist are enough to push me into the abyss again. That was his birthday wish that day. Actually, I just wish Isabel peace and health. Brian was just a bargaining chip for him to ask me to live. But for me, as long as I can see his appearance, even if it's fake, I'll be happy with it. I want to see him take his brother's place and become that superstar. However, because of me, Brian never got the right opportunity. At the beginning, some producers were attracted by his appearance and voice and wanted to sign him. But he always said that the time was not right. Watching him getting thinner and thinner, I felt sad. So, I found Clyde and asked him to give Brian a chance to perform on stage. Clyde shook his head helplessly. If you hadn't promised to send me 10 sets of music scores a month in exchange, he wouldn't be qualified to perform on the big stage at his current level. I patted his shoulder with a smile and made a solemn promise. His brother and I both believe that he will succeed one day. You should also have confidence. He looked at my blindly confident face, smiled, then suddenly thought of something and frowned again. Your sister approached me before and told me that her company wanted to sign Brian, and asked me to see if I could get him in as a backing singer, as long as he could show his face. I didn't expect that after Brian's plan came out, she took all the credit for herself. She is just as shameless as she was back then. When it comes to Denise's behavior, I'm not surprised. It doesn't matter to me whose face the performance was scheduled for. The important thing is that Brian got his first chance to perform on stage. But I was wrong. At that performance, the crowd pushed me to the end of the stage. He held Denise's hand and looked at her lovingly. The camera captured my face. I swallowed my sadness and smiled. Be his most understanding audience. Clyde found me, looking angry. You should have told him. Without you, he wouldn't be where he is today. I shook my head. What you haven't said before, you don't need to say in the future. At that time, I naively thought that as long as I gave my all, I would get equal rewards. But I forgot that human hearts are the most unpredictable. He was never Eugene. Clyde recorded my ugly smile in the video. If this brat dares to let you down in the future, I will definitely use this video to settle the score with him. I finally laughed. Good. What was just a joke at the time turned out to be a prophecy 7 years later. After the documentary came out, it immediately caused an uproar. Oh my god. What a shocking reversal. It turns out I have been scolding the wrong person. Denise is such a bitch. So vicious. She is a complete bully and cheater. I want to report her. No wonder Denise's songs are in the same style as Isabel's. The music that Clyde gave to her company was originally Isabel's music. And Isabel's dad. Is he her real dad? She was confusing right and wrong before. It turns out that if there is a stepmother, there must be a stepfather. Bah. Is no one paying attention to Brian's brother? His love with Isabel is so good. Brian is a scumbag and is not worthy of Isabel at all. I suggest that the scumbag and the evil woman be locked up. Have you forgotten Clyde's new album? Although this documentary is whitewashing Isabel, why did she appear as a producer? She wouldn't use Brian's money to support Clyde. Right. Suddenly, the discussion among netizens shifted from the melodramatic double stand-in between Brian and me to my sponsorship of Clyde. Denise's actions were just lightly exposed. The direction of public opinion once again moved towards a climax of smearing me. Only this time, Clyde was brought along. Clyde stopped me from apologizing and patted me sympathetically instead. How are you? I shook my head to indicate that I was fine. At the beginning, I did clarify it, but no one cared. So there is no need to keep explaining it to people now. I have seen all the ups and downs over the years. I am no longer the 21-year-old girl who can't stand the slightest torture and wants to commit suicide. Instead, my focus is on the new album. After all, it was the swan song of the love of my life. Even if it costs him everything, he wants everyone to remember his name. His name is Eugene. It should have been the brightest star in the music world. Clyde also looked stern, which was unusual for him. Rest assured, this album will be just like its name, emerging from a cocoon into a butterfly. In the evening, when Clyde took me back to my new rental house, Brian scared us like a wandering ghost. At his feet was a pile of crushed beer cans. Under the influence of alcohol, he pushed Clyde away, stumbled over to hug me, and choked for a while. I'm sorry, Isabel. I've broken up with Denise. Let's not get divorced. Okay. In fact, I have always loved you in my heart. But you became more and more incomprehensible to me. I was scared. So I found Denise to confirm your feelings. He staggered, then realized that I had pushed him away. with a look of disbelief on his face. Isabel, you once worked for me until you fainted, and you picked out the meat in the lunchbox for me to eat. You would do your best to satisfy whatever I asked. Have you forgotten all this? It turns out that he remembers everything from the past. Then when he forced me to apologize for Denise, allowed her to take my things, and made me a babysitter for Denise, did he ever remember my kindness? I shook my head and frowned. Brian, I don't love you. But he seemed not to hear it and continued to speak. Even if you treat me like him and support Clyde, I don't care. I have money now. Please don't leave me. It's okay to use him as a substitute, but to support Clyde. This is what he called love. Always self-righteous. If it were Eugene, he would definitely believe me unconditionally. He will fight against evil for me to the end, and then feel extremely distressed. No one can bully my little girl. Eugene, I'm tired. Will you forgive me for not being able to take care of your brother anymore? Over the years, you helped Denise to avenge me, and I used you as a substitute to fill the void. Now we are even now. His eyes suddenly turned red and he rushed over like crazy. I don't want to be even. Isabel, we can't be even. You don't know. I was very unhappy after I filed for divorce with you. No matter what I did with Denise, you were the only thing on my mind. Every time you get angry, I actually hope that you are jealous. I want to see that you still care about me as always. Isabel, give me one more chance. I will never let you down again. I will give you everything that Eugene couldn't give you. But when he was only 2 steps away from me, Clyde punched him in the face. You still have the nerve to mention your brother and say you love Isabel. Do you want me to release the video right now so that everyone can see the face you and Denise used to bully others? Brian, instead of pretending to be affectionate, why don't you pay me for hiring the internet trolls to discredit Isabel? It just so happens that I'm still short of publicity money for my new album. He clenched his fists, as if he had suddenly sobered up, and he could walk straighter, even with his head no longer hanging. Before leaving, he did not forget to make some harsh remarks. Isabel, you are awesome. Clyde pretended to hit him, but he ran away like a rabbit. How can he be Eugene's brother? Coward. In the middle of the night, Denise and Brian's story was once again on the hot search list. Denise just issued a statement accusing Clyde's documentary of being fake. Unexpectedly, before Clyde could fight back, a video completely nailed her to the pillar of shame. The video was shot by her assistant, and most of it was taken from candid angles, so it's a bit blurry. But it was clear that the person smoking inside and swearing at others was Denise. The time can be traced back to 4 years ago, on Brian and I's wedding night. Denise got really drunk and had her assistant take a picture of her threatening to commit suicide and send it to Brian. At first, Brian always complained to me about my sister pestering him. But later, she asked her assistant to investigate all of Brian's preferences and cater to his tastes. He hired a lot of internet trolls to discredit me. When he mentioned Denise's name again, the corners of his lips began to rise. The information that he reported to me every day was gradually replaced by playing games with Denise. Even when I was sick, Denise would stay in my hospital room with her assistant and discuss singing techniques loudly with Brian. I complained about the noise, but she was making a fuss out of grievance. I didn't stop until Brian agreed to let me kneel down and apologize. And when I was being criticized the most, she dragged Brian to perform abroad. When she was moved, she kissed the married man on the lips, and Brian didn't push her away. She asked her assistant to pick out the photos with the best angles and send them to me. Isabel, do you think Brian is in love with me this time? The one who is not loved is the mistress. You and your mother are destined to be mistresses. During these 4 years, she could have anything she liked of mine. At the same time, she also ordered me to cook for her and wash clothes for her. Whenever something goes wrong, he would point his finger at me and complain to Brian. And every time, it ended with the men forcing me to apologize in various ways. These farces are unfolding on the internet like threads of an onion being unraveled. Finally, they had no chance of recovery. I'm sick of this kind of man. If he doesn't want your money, does he want your dirt? Fortunately, Isabel doesn't love you. Otherwise it would be even worse than Wang Baochuan digging wild vegetables. Denise is still portraying herself as a pure and innocent girl. But I think she is a pure and lustful girl. A cuckold and a bitch. The comments of the mistress are really disgusting to me. Aren't you looking forward to the new album produced by Clyde and Isabel? I really want to know what it's about. Taking advantage of this momentum, Clyde directly pushed, breaking the cocoon, onto the platform. As soon as the album was released, the number of people listening to the songs online soared. Everyone is asking, who is this singer? Charming voice, lo-fi beat style. The soothing music and melancholy drum beats can heal the restless night and bring peace, warmth and comfort. It's like an old man holding his partner's hand in the evening and talking about the past. All the good things came flooding back to that spring. The young man always had a smirk on his lips, and he looked at me with gentle eyes. And here he comes, shining brightly. The last song is, There Are Trees in the South, which is more complete than, Love Falls in Frost. Eugene also came to life because of Isabel. At the end of the song, I unexpectedly heard the conversation between Eugene and Clyde. It was the night before my birthday. Clyde asked him, "You went through so much trouble. Aren't you just trying to give Isabel a surprise? What are you thinking? If you don't like her, don't try to seduce her. She's a fragile girl." The boy smiled and admitted it without hesitation. "I've waited so long. How could I not like her? I'm going to go to City A with her, stand on that highest podium, and propose to her. I will tell her that with me around. She doesn't need to be too sensible. Just do what she likes. But if we can't be together, I also hope that she can take care of herself and forget about me." I covered my lips and burst into tears. On the day of the Golden Melody Awards, I didn't wait for his proposal, but his brother took the award that belonged to me for Denise. When everyone asked me to be sensible, he was the only one who told me that I didn't need to be too sensible. There's no way I can forget him. I will remember him well and choose him as my partner in my next life. That night, he broke out of his cocoon and I became a butterfly. But there are still some die-hard fans of Denise who refuse to give up. This is copyright infringement. This song clearly belongs to Denise. Clyde threw out 2 pictures. One is the notarized certificate of my recovery of the donated copyright. One is a record of all the songs I have ever written, which I bought back one by one with checks. Everything Brian has is built through the hard work of his brother and I. I have no sympathy for spending his money. That night, Eugene's name topped the trending search list and the download list. The Golden Melody Awards also hastily removed Denise from the list and instead awarded the Best Singer award to Eugene. While I won the Best Composer award, I helped him fulfill his unspoken words. On the day I received the award, I went up to the podium wearing a wedding dress, holding 2 trophies in my hands. My heart felt heavy. What belongs to him will arrive late. Brian's eyes were red and he wanted to rush to the stage desperately, but was stopped by the security guards. "You scumbag. Stay away from Isabel. You will never be better than your brother." The next day, news came out that Brian and Denise had been terminated. Brian appeared in front of me again, looking haggard. When 999 roses were piled in front of me, he shed a few tears. "Isabel, my brother asked you to take care of me. You can't give up halfway." But I smiled at him and fiddled with the petals that still had water droplets on them. "Thank you, Mr. Chu, for remembering my past preferences. But now, I prefer the multi-million contract I signed myself. Also, I'm not the one who gave up halfway. I wish you and Denise a happy marriage." Clyde came to pick me up to sign the contract, and he was not tired of Brian's pestering. I stopped his raised fist, pulled him straight into the car, and pointed at Denise, who was not far away. As the car drove away, the rearview mirror was filled with images of Denise beating Brian. I curled my lips and smiled. They can finally be together openly. So why do they look unhappy? My father, who hadn't contacted me for many years, called me for the first time. "Girl, go home if you have nothing to do. We haven't had a meal together for a long time." But Denise's crying could be heard faintly from the back. I sighed and reminded him, "You didn't want me a long time ago. Have you forgotten? Let's leave that hypocritical family affection to Denise." The next time I saw Brian and Denise was at a ribbon-cutting event. Their reputation was ruined and they were banned by the industry. The only work I can get is roadshows. The 2 of us sang a love song together again. But it was no longer the masterpiece I wrote, but a casual song played on the street. Unlike their previous glory on stage, they now look like 2 emotionless clay dolls. There was no interaction, no affectionate gaze. But the moment they saw me, both of them came back to life. But she shook her head and said that Brian was never the protagonist in her photos. But after being scolded by the boss, they were like 2 quails. "What kind of shit are you guys singing? Why are you charging so much for it?" "Boss, we were very famous before. Look at the reports. How about you give us half the money?" "Do you know Eugene? He's my brother." The boss laughed out loud. "If he is really your brother, it can only be said that it is a misfortune for the family. Okay, just $1,000. Take it or not." They held $1,000 in their hands. Their eyes dim. When I looked up again, I was already sitting in a Rolls-Royce. Brian muttered in a lost voice. Denise is the unlucky one in the family. Not me. Denise went crazy again and kicked and hit him. Brian, what do you mean? If it weren't for you, would I have to suffer like this? You have to work 2 more jobs for me tonight. The rent for this month hasn't been paid yet. The people who were willing to share the ups and downs with him before are long gone. All that was left was Denise's endless abuse and complaints. He shook his head in disappointment and repeated it. Isabel wouldn't be like this. She loves me very much. Yes, as long as I stay together, Isabel and I will still be husband and wife. But he forgot that there is a clause about filing for divorce in the marriage law. He raised his phone and waved it in my direction. On the screen, it was 22-year-old Isabel, holding a lunchbox worth $10, smiling at the camera. Will Isabel, the future, be very happy after marrying Brian, the famous singer? You must never forget the hardship you have endured for him over the years, and you must pay him back double. I smiled and stroked the photos on the album. Eugene, I didn't play the sensible role this time. I have gotten back all the hardship and fatigue I went through back then. Master, take me to the airport. I will take Eugene's dream and fly to a higher place.